Hey everyone, I'm Callie and I'd like to welcome you back to my channel. Before we get started here, I just want to thank my supporters on Patreon. Thanks for being among the first to jump on board and support this channel. For those of you who don't know, I started a Patreon account, and the lowest tier on Patreon is like a little tip jar once a month that says, "Hey Callie, thanks so much for what you're doing, and I would like you to keep the educational videos coming, so be sure to check it out." Now today's video is on Rose Etude number 6. It's from the 32 Etudes. And this one is so tricky. It's Allegro, rapid, lively tempo, and it's just full of all kinds of tricky little things in here. So I'm just gonna take you through, give you a few little practice tips here and there on how to kind of master this. Although I would definitely say I clearly haven't mastered this one. However, it's really fun to play once you kind of have it down. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is, just like all of the other ones, you want to determine the character of the piece. So Allegro is rapid, lively, and if you just have the bare bones basic edition of this, that's it. That's all you got. You got nothing else in here. So you kind of have liberty to do what you want with your dynamic shaping and the contrast going here and there through the different sections. So if you take a look at the big picture, you have 3 major sections. Actually, I would say 4 major sections, right? So you have the beginning up to the very first 1 bar rest. Then you have kind of like a little interlude here, and it kind of goes into these like little arpeggiated things, which, man, those are hard. Those are so hard for me to coordinate. But I will show you a few things that I do to kind of make those better. But anyway, so that's about 2 lines, 2.5 lines-ish. And then after the next quarter note rest, you've got the 3rd section, which is, you know, the A section coming back, which is this happy little G major melody hopping up and down, right? And then you go all the way through, and then there's a coda section, which is just a little bit different than all of the sections before that. So you basically have an A, B, A, C kind of format here in this etude. So whenever you're determining what to do with this, I personally like to have my A sections sound a little bit more bright and cheery, and a little bit more full and maybe you could say forte and dynamic. Whereas the middle section here, the B section, I like to play that a little bit more subdued, a little bit more introverted sounding. And then the final section, I like to build that one up from a more moderate dynamic all the way up to the very end, this finish. So that's kind of the general roadmap here that I like to, I like to do whenever I'm playing this. Now, technically speaking, this is very similar to a lot of the previous etudes in this book, or the fast etudes in this book, where you have some combination of slurred 16th notes, and it's really hard to play these evenly. So I would recommend practicing using practice rhythms like this. And then switch them. So I would use practice rhythms any number of times whenever I feel like I needed it. So there's that. Now, if you fast forward a little bit to the end of the 2nd line, you have a bunch of 16th notes that are articulated one after another, And that can be a recipe for hand and finger coordination disasters. So I would actually recommend using the practice technique, two different practice or playing techniques. One is called stop tonguing, where you actually stop the vibration of the reed with your tongue after each staccato note. So you create space without it chopping off your air and kind of choking you off. And you coordinate that with the practice technique of prepared fingers. So in essence, when there's silence happening, your finger moves to the next note, and then a sound, the tongue comes away and the sound is created. So you are actually going to move your tongue and your fingers opposite one another. Now, this is really, really tricky to grasp. So you have to do it very slowly in the beginning when you're really first trying this out, because it's easy to do it wrong and to get tense and choked up and stuff like that. So I have actually a great tutorial on that concept already. I'm going to put it up here somewhere above me. And if you want to check out exactly how to do the prepared finger stop tonguing technique, you can check that. That's a step-by-step tutorial, but I'm just going to demonstrate really fast here what it would sound like doing that section. Yeah, so that's basically how you do prepared fingers. Now, another tricky spot is if you go to the B section, coordinating those so that would be a wise spot to actually practice doing three things. Stop tonguing, meaning you stop the vibration of the reed with your tongue at the end of the slur and at the end of each staccato. So I'll demonstrate this in a moment. So you clip the slurs, and you also practice prepared fingers. So you're doing slur clipping, stop tonguing, which is essentially one and the same, and prepared fingers. So that's going to kind of get this ingrained in your muscle memory. But you have to make sure you start slowly and then work your way up faster. Otherwise, it's just not going to stick. Now, I also like to think of this section in terms of a melody, because it can kind of seem like it's just chugging along and it's just like a bunch of arpeggios. And I get really tripped up if I think of music like a robot. And so it really helps me to think about this as being a musical line. Okay, so most of the rest of this is really quite similar to everything I just said. You want to clip your slurs, you want to make this sound fun and upbeat and exciting, and choose a tempo that is doable for you. So I know there are lots of other players out there who they're like, yeah, I'm just going to play this like 5 million miles per hour and play it super fast. I don't like doing that because that's a lot of work. No, I'm just kidding. I actually think it kind of takes away some of the fun character if you kind of overdo the speed in this. There's a lot of sparkle that can come from really clearly hearing the intervals between the notes. So I tend to like playing this a little bit on the slower side. Now, the last thing you want to do is make is make this sound like you're a button pushing robot. So also keep in mind that you have to add dynamic shaping to this. So when the lines go up, for example, 4 lines from the bottom here, you've got this. Give it a bit of a crescendo and a decrescendo. In fact, it's actually written in the part. I did not notice that it was actually written in until just now. That's fun. Okay, well, anyway, so crescendo up to that and then decrescendo, but you don't have to do it just there. You can do it everywhere. And, you know, like I said, this coda section, it kind of starts off a little bit sneaky. And then it builds up and up and up. And then all of a sudden you're doing this little dance and coming down, and then it finishes off with a nice, grand, sparkling G major finish. So, you know, follow your instinct and make this sound fun. If you are worried so much about coordinating all of the button pushing things, you know, then it can really take away from the enjoyment of playing this. So take it at a speed where you can enjoy playing the music, and then work on speeding it up maybe. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I have to say about this. If you guys have any more questions, leave them in the comments below. Likewise, if you guys have any little practice tips you want to add to this, you know, we're a community here, and I like to hear what you guys have to say. So please add to this if you feel, you know, if you feel the need to. So thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to check out my Patreon page, and as always, happy practicing.